Okay, so welcome students to the lab class of the first lab, the Excel skeleton. So this slide showing you the keywords or the checklist of this lab. So you can study according to this checklist. So the first topic, okay, I will be talking about the scale. The scale will be composed of two bones, okay. This is the facial bones. The facial bones also called the visceral cranium. And the upper bone here is the cranial or cranial bones. It is also called the neurocranium because it protects your brain. Okay. And next, if you look at the anterior view of your skull, you see the image like this. Okay, and the important bones that can be seen, for example, is this one. This one is on your forehead, so this bone is called the frontal bone. Okay, the frontal bone. And here, this big hole here is your orbit. Is placed where your eyeballs situated there, and on the rim of your orbit is called the supraorbital margin. Okay, and on your nose here, these two bones comes joined together. Okay, these two bones are called the nasal bones. Your nose here, the bone of the nose, the nasal bones. And next to the nasal bone here, lateral to the nasal bones are the lacrimal bones. Okay, the lacrimal bones. The next bone that can be seen is your cheekbone here, the cheekbone. The cheekbone is called the zygomatic bones. Okay, the zygomatic bones. And the zygomatic bones will have the process called the temporal process of the zygomatic bones, and it will become the zygomatic arch. Okay. The next bone here is the part of the ethmoid bone called the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, and below that is the vomer bone, vomer. Okay, and on the middle side here, inside here is called the inferior conga, and here, this bone where your upper teeth are situated, this bone here is called your maxilla bone, and the last bone, the largest bone of your facial bone is this bone. This one is called the mandible. The mandible mainly composed of three parts: the body, the ramus, and where the body and ramus join is called the angle of the mandible. Okay. So, and for the lateral view, okay. For the lateral view, what you will see, the first bone, same as the anterior view, the frontal bone. On the side here is the parietal bone. Okay, the parietal bone. Behind here is the occipital bone. Okay. In the middle here is the temporal bone, the squamous part of the temporal bone. Okay, and this bone, okay, this bone will be, you see the line that join the bone together. Okay, that join the bone together. This small bone here is a sphenoid bone. Okay, sphenoid bone. Between the frontal bone and the parietal bone, you will see the line that the bone join here is called the coronal suture. Okay, and where the parietal bone join with the squamous part of the temporal bone, this line here is called squamous suture. Okay, and where the occipital bone join with the parietal bone, this line here is called lambdoid suture. Okay, and there is one part that you will see the H-shaped bone here. This part is the weakest part of your bone, of your skull bone. This part is called terion. Okay, terion. It is the weakest part because of it is composed of four bones together: the frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, and the sphenoid bone. Okay, join together become the terion. Okay, And next, if you look at the temporal bone here, the temporal bone here will send the process called the temporal process and the zygomatic process of the temporal bone to join together with the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. This bone is the zygomatic bone. So together they become the zygomatic arch. Okay, zygomatic arch. Another part of the temporal bone that you can see is this hole. This hole is your ear. The hole of your external ear is called the external acoustic meatus. Okay, and the largest bone here, the hard and largest bone that you can like palpate behind your ear. Okay, this is called the mastoid process. It is place where like ligament or your muscles is attached to. Okay, and then another bone that you can see on the lateral view is the mandible. Here is the mandible. Okay, which is divided into body, angle, ramus. And on the lateral view here, you also see this process, two process here. The in front one here is called the colonoid process of the mandible, and the behind one is called the condyloid process of the mandible. This condyloid process here will become your temporomandibular joint, which allow you to move your jaws. Okay. And next one, the posterior view of your skull. Okay, so mainly you see three bones: the parietal bone, occipital bone, and the temporal bone. Okay, the highest point of your skull is called the vertex. Okay, and the line where the two parietal bones connect is called the sagittal suture. And the lines where the parietal bone connect with the occipital bone is called the lambdoid suture. Okay, lambdoid suture. But there is a point where these sutures join together. This point here is called lambda. Okay, lambda. And on behind of the occipital bone here is called the external occipital protuberance. Here is the place where your like bone is become a ridge, and allow your muscles to attach to. Next one, if you look onto the inferior view of your skull, you see this thing here. This thing here is your palate. It's composed of two main bones. Okay, this bone, small bone here, is called the palatine bone. Okay, and in front of here is your maxilla bone. Another bone that I want you to know is this bone, occipital bone. On the occipital bone, you will see this hole, the big hole, the biggest hole here. The biggest hole here is called foramen magnum. It is the place where your spinal cord travels down from your skull onto your vertebral column. Okay, and this thing here, the bone that become like hardening, this one called the occipital condyle. The occipital condyle will join with the C1 bone or the atlas cervical bone. Okay, and become your like cervical joint. And next, and if you cut your skull and look inside, you will see something like this. Okay, and your cranial base is called your cranial base. Okay, so the cranial base, what you will see, the cranial base is divided into three parts: the anterior cranial fossa, the middle cranial fossa, and the posterior cranial fossa. Okay, so let's see each one of them. For the anterior cranial fossa, what you will see, okay, you see here this thing here. This thing here is a part of the ethmoid bone. Okay, this thing here in the middle is called the crista galli, and it's located on the bone that is like full of pores, many pores. That area is called the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. It is a plate where your cranial nerves like send the nerve down to your nose, and like sensation of your smelling. Okay. And next bone is the sphenoid bone. This thing here is your sphenoid bone. Okay, the sphenoid bone is divided into two parts, which are the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. Lesser wing is here. Okay, lesser wing is in the anterior cranial fossa, and the greater wing is down here. The greater wing of sphenoid bone. The shape is look like a butterfly. Okay, butterfly. And the area here is called sella turdica. It is a place where your pituitary gland is located. Okay, your pituitary gland is located. And next part, the middle cranial fossa area here. Okay, it is mainly composed of the temporal bone. Okay, the temporal bone. And the temporal bone here, this thing here is like become like the mountain part is the hard part. It is called the P-task part of the temporal bone. The squamous part is on the outside, right? This thing is the squamous part of the temporal bone, but the P-task part is inside. It is in the middle cranial fossa. Okay. And for the posterior cranial fossa, the most important thing that I want you to know is this hole, the foramen magnum. Okay, foramen magnum. Next is the sutures. Okay, sutures and the connection between the sutures. And I have talked before. This is in front. Okay, in front and the back. Okay. The suture here are the line that connect the frontal bone to the parietal bone. This thing here is called the coronal suture. Okay, and the line that connect the parietal bone together is called the sagittal suture. Okay, and the line that connect the occipital bone to the parietal bone is called the lambdoid suture. And there is a point where the connection of the sutures connected here where the coronal suture and sagittal suture connect here is called brecma. And on here where the sagittal suture join with the lambdoid suture here is called the lambda. Okay, lambda. This one is the brecma. This one is the lambda. Okay. So this is for your self study. You can look by yourself and study. Okay, this one also. Okay, next for the vertebral column. Okay, your vertebral column or spine composed of 5 vertebral groups, 7 cervical bones, 12 thoracic bones. 12 thoracic bones, 5 lumbar, 5 fused sacral, and 4 fused coccygeal. Okay, so these are your spine. And if we look at each vertebra, okay, we can be differentiate into the typical and atypical vertebra. For the typical vertebra, they will share some similar characteristics, such as we have the vertebral body. This is the vertebral body. Okay, they will have the vertebral arch. This is your vertebral arch. The vertebral arch composed of the pedicle. Here is the pedicle, and the lamina is here, your lamina. Okay, and this foramen here is called your vertebral foramen. And the transverse process is the bone that came out from your pedicle. Okay, and the spinal process is here, come from your lamina. Two of your lamina join together and become the spine here, spinal process. and they will show the articular process here, superior and inferior articular process, to join with another organ, another bone such as the ribs, or join with another vertebra above or below. Okay. Next, for the atypical vertebra, right? For example, the atypical vertebra can be classified into the C1 or atlas and C2 or axis, and also the sacrum. Okay, if you will look at the atlas or C1, the C1 is atypical because it has no body. Okay, it has no body. It has no spinal process. Okay, and it has only tubercle. Okay, tubercle. And for the axis, its body become like this. It's called the odontoid process or the dens. Okay, and for the sacrum, it became like 5 sacral bones and fused into one. It's like the triangle bones, like triangle like this. Okay, so these are the atypical vertebrae, and this you can do yourself, study the difference between the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebra. Okay, if for the cervical vertebra, right, the main characteristic is that it has in its transverse process, you will see the holes here. These holes here is called a foramen transversalium or transverse foramen. It is found only in C1 to C7. Okay, C1 to C7. And the body is very small. And from C1 to C6, its spinous process will be like this, divided into two tails. It's called the bifid spines. Bifid spines. Okay. But for the C7, it will be like this. It's like prominent, more prominent, and no bifid spine. And for the thoracic vertebra, the body will become like heart shape, and the spine will like downward, located downward. And for the lumbar vertebra, the body is very big because it has to like hold your bodies, your weights. So it will be very big, and the spine will be short and large. Okay. So you can study by yourself by looking at this picture. Okay. Last one, the bony thorax. So it's composed of the rib, okay, the rib, 12 ribs, and the sternum. Okay, sternum. So the sternum, let's look at sternum first. The sternum will be composed of mainly of 3 parts: the manubrium, body, and will be the xiphoid here. Xiphoid is gone. Okay, the xiphoid. So in this picture, here is the manubrium, body, and the xiphoid. And the point where the manubrium join together with the body is called the sternal angle. Okay, sternal angle. So this thing is the sternal angle or the manubrio-sternal joint. And where the lips join to the manubrium here, this thing is called the costal cartilage. Costal cartilage. Okay, and the ribs has 12 pairs. Okay, 12 pairs of the ribs. 1, 2, 7 ribs is called true ribs because it has its own costal cartilage. This white thing here. Rib 8, okay, 8 to 12 is called a false rib because it has no its own costal cartilage. But for ribs 11 and 12 is like floating. It's also called the floating lips for lip 11 and 12. Okay, and if we look at the ribs, right, the ribs will be composed of mainly 3 parts: the head, the neck, and the body. Okay, the body. And if you look like inside the rib, you will see the line that become like depressed down. This line here is called the costal groove. It is the groove where your vessels and nerve runs inside. Okay. Okay, so good luck and get A.